Hey everyone, this is Mike Lundy with Muskie Mike Flies, and one of your writers for Mercury Marine's The Dockline. And today I'm going to be going over a multi-series, how to construct and tie a series of different bucktail jigs. And the first one we're going to start off with today, I'm going to show how to tie a stinger hook on here. Stinger hooks are excellent for increasing your hookup percentages, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. And the most important thing is always double check the regulations for the fishery you're targeting, because if a regulation does not allow for a stinger hook, then you can't do this. But most fisheries nationwide in both marine and freshwater watersheds allow for this. So here's what we're going to start off with today. We're going to use a Gamakatsu 3/8 ounce Darterhead Jig, and to secure it we're going to use 30-pound Power Pro. And the stinger hook you always want smaller than the main jig hook. For example, this Gamakatsu Darterhead has a 3/0, 2/0, 3/0 hook shank. So by rule of thumb, we want a smaller hook. So we're going to use a size 2 owner Octopus hook for the stinger. So these are pretty easy to tie. So what you want to use, you want to have your fly tying bobbin right here. You can have this with gelspun thread, or you can use Kevlar. You want a heavy duty thread so you can really cinch down on it, and that's the beauty of gelspun. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start my thread wraps on the jig hook shank right here in the middle. I'm just going to do several wraps just to get it in position like that. Take my scissors, trim the excess thread like this. Then I'm going to take some 30-pound braid. I'm going to trim about maybe between an 8 and a 10-inch piece. All right, so here's your 30-pound Power Pro right here. This is about maybe, about 8 to 12 inches roughly, like I said. What we're going to do next is we're going to loop it through an octopus hook. So here's our octopus hooks here. Pretty easy step. All right, as you can see, there it is, a number 2 octopus hook from owner. So what you're going to do, you're going to take both tag ends of line like this, so that the two tag ends are touching each other and equal in length. You should have a loop at the bottom formed. You're going to take the two tag ends, and if you need to lubricate the ends with some saliva to make it easier, that's totally fine. That's what I always do. You're going to insert both through the hook eye like this. Insert them both through. Slowly pull it through like this. And as you notice, the loop becomes smaller and smaller as I pull it through. See how small that loop is? Now what we're going to do, we're going to take the loop and stick it right over the hook point like that. I'm going to pull the two tag ends, and then the loop is going to secure shut on the hook eye like this. Ready? There. Now we can start attaching the stinger hook to the main jig hook shank. And as a rule of thumb, you always want the hook to be placed in the upturned position. This will maximize your strike efficiency when a fish strikes your bucktail jig. So I'm going to make a couple loose wraps like this, just to keep it in position. Between like 3 and 5. Now I want to determine the distance from the stinger hook to the jig hook shank. You don't want a really long distance. You don't want it too close. And a lot of this determines on the species you're going after, of course. So then I've made 5 loose wraps. I'm going to pull the stinger hook back where I feel comfortable and confident where it's positioned. So right about there. So that's about maybe 3/4 of an inch. Get my roller here for measuring. Looks like it's about 3/4 of an inch from the hook curvature to the stinger hook right there. So that's a good overall length, but again, determines the species you're going after. And a good rule of thumb, if you're going after northern pike, muskie, barracuda, bluefish, fish in general with really sharp teeth, you would substitute the braid for wire. Now I'm just going to slowly wrap backwards and make sure each wrap is tight. What this does, it makes sure that the braid is not going anywhere. And most importantly, when you're fighting your fish, you want to minimize the chances of the stinger hook coming undone, which would be an absolute nightmare. And this is why you always want to put some nice, even, tight wraps on there. I'm going all the way down. I'm going to keep going down. Don't be in a rush. Again, you always want to make sure each wrap is nice and tight. All right about there. I feel pretty confident with the end point right there. Now I'm going to wrap back the other direction. Same thing. Want to make sure each wrap is tight. And that's the nice thing about gel spun thread. You can really put a lot of body English into the wraps compared to normal thread like uni thread and Verivas thread. It's skinnier in diameter and density. It's gonna break on you. But this will not. It takes a lot of physical force to break gel spun thread. So once I get back to where I initially started my thread wraps, now here's part 2 of this. I'm going to take the 2 tag ends you see right here. What I'm going to fold them over itself like this. See? Just like that. I'm going to fold them over itself. All right, so go there. I'm just going to keep taking your time. Make sure each wrap nice and tight. I try to make sure that the line is right on top of the, I want to make sure both sections of braid here for the stinger hook connection are right on top of the hook shank. I don't want them on the side. That's why I'm taking my 2 fingers here to kind of manually hold it in position so it's nice and even. All right, so once I get near the end here, as you can tell, as I am advancing my thread towards the back here, we're right about here. Now I can take my fly tying scissors here and cut the excess thread off like that. Discard it. Now all I got to do is just wrap back towards the front of the jig hook shank right here. Slowly working my way up. Again, make sure each wrap is nice and tight. All right. Only one last step. Like, you either do a half hitch or a whip finish and tie off your jig. I prefer a whip finish. So what you're going to do, you can either do a manual whip finish, but a lot easier is to use a whip finish tool like this. Pretty simple. It's just like tying any other fly or hair jig variant. You're just going to have yourself about 6-12 inches of excess thread. Stick it right there in the top hook of the whip finish tool. Reach around, keep it nice and tight, rotate this way. Do about 4 to 6 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Usually for a little extra security, I'll throw a second whip finish in there. I'll repeat it one more time. Again, the thread is in the top hook of the whip finish tool. Reach underneath, keep it tight. Your hand that's holding the bobbin, this is the one that creates the amount of slack or tightness, and the right hand kind of helps guide it. So what you want to do is you're going to go this way again one more time, like this. There's 3, 4, 5. Push inward while keeping this tight. Pull up. And that is it. There's your stinger hook connection. Now, an optional step, if you want to, for some extra Superman-like strength, you could take some UV thin or thick adhesive and dry it with a UV enhanced light like this one right here. That'll help reinforce those wraps. But you just trim your excess thread off, and you are all set for tying your hair jig. And there you go. There it is right there. See? 3/8 ounce Darterhead jig with a number 2 owner Octopus stinger hook. And there you go. It's nice and tight in there. Fish can't rip it out. Now you can take your other thread of choice, and then you can start tying in your bucktail and start making your hair jig. And that is part 1 of our series for Mercury Marine's The Dockline. And this was, again, how to secure a stinger hook to a jig head for your bucktail jigs. Thank you.